Welcome back to Motivation Library. Today we're going deep, deep into Jane Eyre.
Oh, Jane Eyre. I love Jane Eyre. A classic, and one we're so excited to unpack with all of you.
A lot of you are probably familiar with the story already.
At least in broad strokes.
But there's so much more to this book than just the plot.
Exactly. And that's what we're here for, to uncover those hidden layers, those little details.
Yeah, those things that make you think, wow, I never noticed that before.
Even if you've read it a dozen times. Because trust me, Jane Eyre is a book that rewards rereading.
So let's start with the basics.
Okay.
We have this young woman, Jane, and she goes through a lot in her life. I mean, a lot.
Talk about a tough childhood. I mean, she's orphaned, mistreated by her aunt and cousins.
And then there's that whole Red Room episode.
Oh, that Red Room.
So vivid, so claustrophobic.
The way Bronte describes it.
You can practically feel Jane's terror and that sense of injustice.
It's not just about being physically locked away, is it? It's about being silenced, being ignored.
Having your feelings invalidated by the very people who should be caring for you.
And that experience really shapes Jane's character, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It sets the stage for her resilience, that inner strength that helps her navigate all the challenges she faces.
And there are a lot of challenges. I mean, from Gateshead, she's sent to Lowood Institution.
And Lowood is like a whole other level of hardship. The conditions are deplorable.
The food is awful, the punishments are harsh, and then there's the typhus outbreak.
It's just brutal.
But even in that environment, a place that seems designed to crush the human spirit.
Jane finds connection. She finds friendship with Helen Burns.
Helen Burns, such a pivotal character, even though
Her time in the story is relatively short, right?
it is, but her impact on Jane is immense.
She teaches Jane about forgiveness, about inner strength, about finding peace amidst suffering.
And it's interesting to think about how those lessons from Helen influence Jane's later choices, because Helen tells Jane to endure hardship without complaint.
To accept her fate, essentially.
Right. But as Jane matures, her understanding of strength evolves. She realizes it's not just about enduring, it's also about knowing your worth. It's about refusing to be treated as less than.
And that shifting perspective is really crucial for understanding Jane's character arc. It prepares her for the complexities she faces when she leaves Lowood.
And ventures out into the world.
To Thornfield Hall.
Thornfield.
The place just oozes secrets and mystery right from the start.
The eerie laughter, that strange fire in Mr. Rochester's room. And then there's Rochester himself.
Brooding, enigmatic.
A bit intimidating, wouldn't you say?
Oh, definitely. And the power dynamic between him and Jane is so interesting. It's not your typical employer-employee relationship.
There's a definite intellectual connection between them, this spark.
They challenge each other, they debate, they share a passion for knowledge and ideas.
But at the same time, Jane is acutely aware of her position. She's a governess, a woman of lower social standing.
And Rochester, for all his progressive views.
He's still a man of his time. He's used to being in control, and that definitely influences how he interacts with Jane.
Especially in the early stages of their relationship.
Like when Blanche Ingram arrives on the scene, Rochester practically flaunts Blanche in front of Jane,
Almost like he's testing her.
seeing if she'll play the role of the jealous, submissive woman.
But of course, Jane doesn't play that role.
Not at all. She stands her ground.
Refuses to be manipulated or to compromise her self-respect, even for a man who clearly fascinates her.
And that inner strength, that unwavering sense of self, it ultimately leads to one of the most dramatic turning points in the novel.
The interrupted wedding. Talk about a cliffhanger.
Right. Just when it seems like Jane and Rochester are about to get their happily ever after.
The truth comes out. The secret about his previous marriage to Bertha.
And the symbolism of Bertha is something we definitely need to unpack.
It's layered, it's complex.
She's often seen as representing this darker side of Rochester.
Right? The secrets and passions that he tries to keep hidden from the world.
But she also embodies the constraints placed on women, particularly those deemed mad or unfit.
And I've always found it interesting that the story is titled Jane Eyre, but in a way,
It's Bertha who's truly imprisoned.
literally locked away in an attic, denied any agency or voice.
That's a great observation. It really highlights those themes of freedom and autonomy that run throughout the novel. Because even though Jane loves Rochester,
She chooses to walk away from a situation that compromises her values.
she refuses to be complicit in a marriage built on secrets and injustice.
It's a powerful moment, a testament to her strength and her unwavering integrity.
And it sets the stage for the next chapter of her journey, one that will test her in ways she could never have imagined.
And that's a perfect place to pause for now. Join us for part 2, where we'll explore Jane's journey after Thornfield and what happens when paths converge again. Welcome back to Motivation Library in part 2 of our deep dive into Jane Eyre. We left off with Jane leaving Thornfield. She makes this incredibly difficult choice to walk away from love and what seems like security.
Yeah, she does. It's really a defining moment for her character, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It really shows her strength and her commitment to her own values.
Exactly. She's not willing to compromise who she is, even for love.
And it's not like she has a lot of options at this point.
Right. She's a single woman with limited resources in a society that doesn't exactly embrace independent women.
And Bronte doesn't shy away from portraying how difficult that reality is for Jane.
Right.
I mean, she's literally wandering the countryside.
She's hungry, exhausted, facing real danger.
You really feel her desperation.
But even in that moment of utter despair, she never gives up.
She clings to that belief that she deserves a life of dignity and purpose.
And that resilience is what ultimately leads her to Marsh End, the home of the Rivers family.
Talk about a change of scenery.
Right. It's like she stepped into a completely different world.
We go from the Gothic, passionate atmosphere of Thornfield
To this quiet, almost austere household.
with Diana, Mary, and St. John, who are all about piety, intellect, and service to others.
It's definitely a contrast to the world Jane has just left behind.
But even in this seemingly peaceful environment,
New challenges emerge.
especially with St. John,
Yeah, St. John. He's a really interesting character.
he's devout, disciplined,
Dedicated to his calling as a clergyman.
and he sees in Jane a kindred spirit
Someone who shares his intellectual curiosity.
and his commitment to moral principles.
But his proposal to Jane really throws a wrench into things, doesn't it?
It does, because while Jane admires his dedication,
His vision of love is just so different from hers.
he sees marriage as a partnership in service to God.
A way to further his religious mission.
But for Jane, love has to be more than that.
She needs passion, she needs connection, she needs a sense of shared purpose that goes beyond duty and obligation.
And ultimately, she realizes that a marriage to St. John, however virtuous it might seem,
Would ultimately stifle her spirit.
so she makes another difficult choice.
She turns him down.
And it's a decision that shows how much she's grown.
She's no longer the timid girl who endures abuse in silence. She's a woman who knows her worth and refuses to settle for a life that doesn't align with her true self.
But just when it seems like she's found some peace at Marsh End, that mysterious call draws her back to Thornfield.
It's like fate, or maybe Bronte herself, is intervening to give Jane and Rochester a second chance.
But the Thornfield she returns to is a shell of its former self,
Ravaged by fire.
a symbol of everything that's been lost.
And Rochester himself is a changed man.
Blinded,
Scarred.
stripped of his wealth and his social standing.
He is a shadow of the man Jane once knew.
It's heartbreaking.
But in that moment of shared vulnerability, their connection deepens.
They see each other with new eyes,
Stripped of all pretense and social expectations.
and their reunion takes on a whole new meaning.
It's not about passion or grand gestures.
It's about a deep understanding and acceptance.
A recognition of their shared humanity.
And what I find so remarkable is that Jane isn't returning to Rochester as a dependent.
Right, she's inherited her own fortune.
She's financially independent.
She's choosing to be with him because she wants to, not because she needs to.
And that makes their marriage so much more powerful,
It's a union of equals.
built on mutual respect and a love that's weathered the storm.
And even though Rochester never fully regains his sight,
It doesn't diminish their happiness,
they find joy and contentment in each other's company.
creating a life that embraces both their past and their uncertain future.
And speaking of different paths, we can't forget about St. John Rivers. His journey takes a very different turn.
He dedicates himself to missionary work in India,
Seeking fulfillment through self-sacrifice and religious devotion.
and his final letter, written from afar, is so thought-provoking.
It hints at a sense of accomplishment, but also a lingering loneliness.
It makes you wonder if he found the fulfillment he was seeking.
Or if he perhaps sacrificed a part of himself along the way.
It definitely adds another layer to the story.
It makes you question whether there's one right path to happiness and purpose.
Or if it's something we each have to define for ourselves.
It's a question that Bronte leaves open for the reader to ponder.
And I think that's part of what makes Jane Eyre so enduring. It invites us to think critically about the choices we make, the paths we choose, and the values that guide our lives. Welcome back to Motivation Library. We're wrapping up our deep dive into Jane Eyre, and I have to say, this has been a journey.
It has. I feel like we've covered so much ground.
We have. But I think there's still so much to unpack about what makes this book so enduring, so captivating, even after all these years.
I think you're right, because on the surface, it's a love story, right?
Yeah, a love story with a lot of twists and turns.
But it's so much more than that. It grapples with these universal themes that still resonate with us today.
Exactly. I mean, who hasn't felt the desire for independence, for autonomy?
Or struggled to define their own identity in a world that tries to put you in a box.
And Bronte doesn't shy away from those struggles, does she?
No, she doesn't. She shows us the harsh realities of social class, the limitations placed on women.
And the consequences of societal expectations.
I mean, think about Jane's experiences. From Gateshead to Lowood to Thornfield, she's constantly pushing against the boundaries set for her.
Always challenging those who try to define her.
Whether it's her aunt, Mr. Brocklehurst at Lowood, or even Rochester in the beginning.
She refuses to be limited by her gender or her social standing.
And that's what makes her so inspiring, I think. Because she shows us that we all have the power to define ourselves.
To create our own path.
To pursue our own dreams.
And her journey, it's not just about personal fulfillment. It's also a critique of the systems that try to hold people back.
Right, those systems that perpetuate injustice and inequality.
We see that so clearly in the story of Bertha Mason, Rochester's first wife.
Locked away, hidden from the world.
Her voice silenced. Her story erased.
It's a stark reminder of how women were often treated, particularly those who didn't conform to societal norms.
And I find it interesting how Jane reacts to Bertha's situation.
How she sees the injustice of it, the cruelty.
Compared to Rochester, who tries to justify his actions, to rationalize his choices.
It's like Jane, with her own experiences of confinement and oppression, can't ignore the wrongness of it.
And her decision to leave Rochester, to walk away from that situation, it really speaks to her integrity.
It shows how much she values her own sense of right and wrong.
And it's a reminder that sometimes the most difficult choices are the ones that align with our values.
Absolutely. And that's why I think Jane Eyre continues to resonate with readers today. We're still grappling with so many of these same issues.
We're still fighting for equality, for social justice, for the right to define our own lives.
And just as Jane found the strength to overcome adversity and create a life of meaning and purpose,
this book reminds us that we can too.
It's a call to action, in a way, an invitation to challenge the status quo, to fight for what we believe in,
to never give up hope for a better future,
to embrace our individuality, and to create a world that reflects our shared humanity.
Well said. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive, Sophia. This has been a truly insightful conversation.
It really has. And thank you to all of you for listening in.
We hope you enjoyed exploring the world of Jane Eyre with us.
And if you did, be sure to give this video a like and subscribe to Motivation Library for more literary adventures.
Until next time, keep reading.